And there was a lot of speculation about his womanizing. And I was the loyal Democrat. And I would not allow myself to believe that that was true. I just thought it was all just rumor.
Willie believes that Hillary Clinton was well aware of the tactics used by the Clinton White House to intimidate perceived enemies. Willie says 2 days before she was set to testify against President Clinton in the Paula Jones sexual harassment case, a stranger confronted her.
We passed, and he stopped, and he said, "Hey, Kathleen, did you ever find your cat?" And then he said, rather ominously, "Yeah, that bullseye was a really nice cat." And that's what I thought, that something else was going on here. He stood back and he said, "You're just not getting the message, are you?"
The Clinton attack machine immediately targeted Willie. However, there are corroborating witnesses. Jared Stern, a former Marine, later told congressional investigators he was hired to investigate Kathleen Willey during a clandestine nighttime meeting.
It was late at night. He called me, asked me to meet him here in this parking garage. I met him, said he had something very important to discuss. I talked to him about it, discussed the tasking, and then I left to carry it out.
Stern declines to discuss what he was hired to do, but Stern has admitted he was so uneasy about it that he called Willie, using an alias.
I made a telephone call to Miss Willie. I left a message on her answering service indicating that I'd try again the next day.
And he left a message for me saying, "Be careful, that there were people out to get me." Jared Stern is a first-hand witness to what the Clintons are doing, have done, and are doing to these women.
The Clintons are a unit. They share a zeal for power and a willingness to engage in any and all threat-neutralizing strategies. Legality be damned. No one will ever say what happened to Kathleen Willey was an anomaly. That MO can be seen throughout the Clintons' political lives. It is consistent.
Willie says her car was vandalized, her house broken into, and a cat's skull was left on her porch. Today, she still lives in fear.
And I don't understand how any woman in this country could vote for a woman who does that to other people, who sets out to destroy and ruin these women who have crossed paths with Bill Clinton. They're power hungry. They stop at nothing. They stop at nothing.
If you put me to work for you, I'll work to lift people up, not push them down.
I finally parted company with Hillary Clinton when I saw how she was using private detectives to investigate the women who were linked to her husband. Not to change him, not to reform him, not to make him a better person, but to cow the women into silence so that he could get elected president. I do not want that woman controlling the IRS or the DEA or the NSA or the FBI or the CIA. Not in a democracy, I don't.
I mean, think of what it says about Hillary Clinton, that she was willing to put up with his open philandering, with anything in a skirt who wanders before his eyesight, all for the power. At least with Bill Clinton, he was just, good time Charlie. Hillary's got an agenda, and she's willing to put up with that to be president of the United States. She's got a to-do list when she gets to the White House.
Hillary Clinton's Machiavellian behavior, her tendency to manipulate, deceive, and destroy for personal gain, is nothing new. This woman, now a hero to feminists, gained much of her power during the Clinton presidency from her ability to deal with her husband's infidelities.
Bill was always heavily involved in the policies of his administration, but he left chasing down his women and silencing them, pursuing the scandals and lying about them, escaping culpability for any of the things in their past, to Hillary. She was his Nixon. She was his evil equivalent. She was the one who made sure that nothing got to him because she was so good at it. And she was.
Hillary's mastery of the black arts of attack politics is often skillfully cloaked in layers of deniability. But when she needs money, as all candidates do, her imprudence bewilders even her most loyal supporters. The pattern is a familiar one. Huge amounts of money are raised from political insiders, lobbyists, and special interest groups, and questions follow. In the summer of 2007, Hilary was forced to return nearly $900,000 from fundraiser Norman Shue, who is now under indictment for running a Ponzi scheme. During the White House years, it was the dirty money of a cast of characters that included Johnny Chung and Charlie Tree, both convicted of illegal campaign fundraising.
I think it was Johnny Chung that said the White House was like a subway turnstile. You put the money in and you got in.
And if his tokens were very large, of course. There's evidence that he collected money from a Chinese intelligence officer, and they were trying to influence our elections to gain access to decision-making powers in the United States so they would bend U.S. policy towards China. The campaign finance scandals were so extensive, 120 people either fled the country to avoid being interrogated by investigators, pled the Fifth Amendment, or otherwise avoided questions. 14 guilty pleas came out of that.
This is really stunning. And it's stunning to me how the media will give her a pass and how the media pretends none of these things happen. And they accept the Hilary operatives line, which is, well, that's old news, everybody knows about it, let's move on. Okay, we move on. Now they're laundering money through Chinese dishwashers in Chinatown in New York.
I'm a little surprised somebody in the campaign didn't flag that down and say, dishwashers, maximum contribution, or $1,000. Let's look into that a little bit. The Los Angeles Times looked into it and found that they couldn't find something like a third of these Chinatown contributors, and that they found other people who said they had no idea that they had made contributions. It looks like a clear case that somebody committed fundraising law violations, and the Clinton campaign at the least did not do due diligence to try and track that down.
One case in particular highlights Hilary's hypocrisy and startling recklessness when it comes to raising illegal campaign contributions. Though most of the news media has ignored it, Hilary was directly involved in what has been called the biggest campaign finance fraud in the history of the United States. It is a story with all the elements of a bestseller: cash, cons, and Hollywood stars. And it was all caught on tape. Few businessmen have seen the career heights and depths of Peter F. Paul.
I've been fortunate to spend time with some of the world's most celebrated figures of the 20th century. One of my idols was Salvador Dali. He had a big influence on the way that I directed my life.
In the early 1980s, Paul, a Miami lawyer with a past criminal record, including convictions for cocaine possession and fraud, headed to Hollywood for a fresh start as a promoter and producer.
After doing various projects in Hollywood, I decided, after meeting a fellow who was a out-of-work model, that there was an opportunity for me to prove that I could cultivate a media icon. Within 18 months, I had him on the cover of People magazine. Ultimately, it led to my first meeting with the Clintons, with Hillary Clinton, actually.
In February of 2000, Peter Paul met with Hollywood charity fundraiser Aaron Tonkin. Tonkin was a celebrity-obsessed con man who in just a few years went from being homeless to one of the Clintons' top money contacts in Hollywood. Like more than a few Clinton associates from the past, Tonkin ended up in federal prison for unrelated fundraising scams.
Aaron, it's Hillary Clinton. I just wanted to call and wish you well for this evening.
It was a growing new relationship. I don't know where it ultimately would lead, but I suppose not in a good place, because all the people that I met around them, that I dealt with in different events, have all gone to prison. And these are very close people, mainly to the president.
Through Tonkin's connections to the Clintons came an interesting offer. In exchange for donations to Hillary's 2000 Senate campaign, Paul would gain access to Bill Clinton for business opportunities once Clinton left the White House.
I had become a very close friend of the creator of Spider-Man, Stan Lee, and we had started a company together in late 1998. So I embarked on this effort to try to hire Bill Clinton when he left the White House as a rainmaker for the company, Stan Lee Media. We had a luncheon at Espagos for 12 people who were influential in the community, and we also raised some money for Hillary. And at that point, I indicated that my plans were to hire Bill when he left the White House. She responded by saying that she would help if I became a major supporter of her campaign.
In June of 2000, Paul agreed to finance what would be the largest and most lavish political fundraiser ever staged in Hollywood.
It consisted of a concert, a dinner, and a reception. In my office on July 17th, I got a phone call from Hillary Clinton.
Paul, who had a habit of videotaping many of his encounters with Hollywood or DC power players, says this tape is evidence of 2 criminal offenses committed by Senator Hillary Clinton. The tape seems to indicate Clinton's participation in the planning of the event, violating federal election statutes.
I think that whatever it is you're doing, is it okay that I thank you?
I think it's tremendous. No, you know what? We're having a good time trying to help out.
Well, I'm very appreciative. It sounds fabulous. I got a full report from Kelly today when she got
Hillary
back.
says she's not sure about what she can or cannot say, is she admitting that her input on the event could be illegal?
I think that whatever it is you're doing, is it okay that I thank you?
Hillary Clinton refers to Kelly. Kelly is Kelly Craighead, Hillary's senior staff assistant at the White House. Hillary's confirmation that she had been fully briefed on my progress and that she would be involved on a personal basis whenever needed, committing a violation of the federal election law.
I know I talked with Chair, and she was just great. Just said, she really was excited, and I hadn't talked to her, so you had to have really done a good job selling it to her.
And her reference to Cher being induced to contribute her singing services, all of them colluded to hide this from every investigation. All of the expenses that I paid for entertainment and costs of various fundraisers for Hillary were never legally reported. But what I discovered was, because Hillary was involved directly, personally, and indirectly through her agent, Kelly Craighead, in conceiving the event, in soliciting the money to pay for the event, and then coordinating the expenditures for the event, clearly the 2 of them were violating federal law.
Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of Stan Lee Media, Stan Lee.
I just want to welcome you all to the Hollywood salute to President William Jefferson Clinton.
It was the biggest event ever produced in Hollywood for a president. Muhammad Ali, John Travolta, Brad Pitt, Shirley MacLaine, the Steenburgen, the Gregory Peck, Cher, Diana Ross, Patti LaBelle, Toni Braxton, Melissa Etheridge, Sugar Ray, Michael Bolton, Paul Anka. We had over 100 stars. The entire leadership of the Democratic Party was there, and it was a magical evening.
But just 2 days later, the magic was gone.
The Monday after the event, I got a phone call from Ed Rendell telling me that the Washington Post was asking questions. The position that Hillary Clinton would take was that she hardly knew me and that I didn't give any money, and that if I was smart in order to maintain my deal, that I would go along with that.
The Washington Post bombshell questioned Hillary's decision to associate with Paul, given his criminal past. The Clinton camp implied they weren't aware of it.
I had been vetted 6 times. My house had been prepared for a presidential sleepover, and the president allowed me to put my name on 25,000 invitations. It's impossible to think that they didn't know that I had federal convictions, which anybody that uses the internet can find within 4 clicks.
Peter Paul was basically paying for the entire event, and he was held at arm's length. He wasn't invited to the White House, and they did not really want to interact with him. And it never really dawned on me, because I really didn't understand those part of politics and how it works, that they do a vetting process.
Amazingly, the Clintons continued to solicit money from Paul, even after publicly distancing themselves from their newfound friend.
On August 24th, a fax was sent to my office on Hillary's letterhead, the Hillary Clinton for Senate letterhead, by her finance director, David Rosen, asking me to transfer $100,000 in stock. And here you have a smoking gun document, which is on her letterhead, faxed to my controller with the wiring instructions to send $100,000 worth of stock. That's illegal. When I became Hillary's biggest donor, no one made any reference to concerns about my credibility, my truthfulness, or my ability to honestly do business. You know, Hillary has no problems with me as long as I'm writing checks.
From there, the Paul case takes twists and turns no screenwriter could imagine. Stanley Media collapses. Paul is indicted on 2 felonies in connection with trading of Stanley Media stock. He's arrested in Brazil by Interpol and languishes 2.5 years in a Brazilian hellhole of a prison awaiting extradition.
She's never called me a liar, and she's never said that my allegations are false. What she has sworn to is that she can't remember some conversations that we had in detail. I'm not asking anybody to like me or to trust me or even to believe me. I'm asking people to look at the record that is undisputed and to come to their own conclusions regarding the suitability of Hillary Clinton to acquire the highest office in this country.
June 9th, 2000, did you discuss with Hillary Clinton supporting her campaign in exchange for President Clinton helping you in your business concerns?
Yes.
Did Hillary Clinton pledge President Clinton's support for your business interests?
Yes.
August 13th, 2000, at Barbara Streisand's home, did you talk with Hillary Clinton about supporting her campaign provided President Clinton help you with your business interests?
Yes.
I've been analyzing polygraphs since 1995. I attended the Department of Defense Polygraph Institute. I would say Mr. Paul has been truthful in his answering the questions concerning the issues administered in the polygraph.
It was the most lavish affair of all. But her campaign said that it cost $400,000, not $1.1 million, so that they could use the other $700,000 for the campaign and use it to buy advertisements. Now the question is, did Hillary know it was a mistake? Of course she did. Number one, she was there and she knew it couldn't have only cost $400,000. Number two, she frequently urged Peter Paul to hold down the expenditures for it. Number three, after the forms were filed with the FEC, Peter Paul told her they were inaccurate, and Hillary continued to file inaccurate forms. And finally, the FEC investigated it and concluded it did cost $1.1 million.
I want to thank Stan Lee and Peter Paul and Aaron Tonkin for their extraordinary hard work and leadership on this.
The Clinton campaign ultimately paid $35,000 in fines for having underreported the cost of the gala. Aaron Tonkin says both Senator Clinton and her finance director, David Rosen, knew of his illegal financing schemes, including how he reimbursed celebrities who donated to Hillary's Senate campaign.
They wrote a check where I told them to write it, the Senate 2000 from the invitation they received, and then I reimbursed them either $1,000 or $2,000, depending if 1 or 2 people came. I told her National Finance Director, David Rosen, and he just said, don't tell me anything like that. And I told the FBI.
Is it possible that the senator from New York and former First Lady, the most experienced of all the candidates, was completely unaware of her finance director's dealings? Peter Paul awaits sentencing for securities fraud. He vows to spend the rest of his life trying to expose what he characterizes as Hillary's chronic pattern of corruption.
Well, I think that, like William Safire said in the New York Times, Hillary's a congenital liar. Even David Geffen, who was a supporter of hers, commented on her facility with lying. So if she can do this as publicly and in such a gross and unvarnished way, then imagine if she got additional power in the White House and what she would do with that. I can't think of any other politician in history who has shown such a disrespect and a contempt for the Constitution and the rule of law as Hillary. And I represented Richard Nixon's best friend, and I knew Richard Nixon. And I'll tell you something, she's no Richard Nixon, she's worse.
One of her great claims throughout the 90s and in her present career as senator is that she'll say, oh, this is all old news. Well, it's old news because the Clintons are repeat offenders. They've been doing these things going right back to the 1980s.
As a senator, Hillary Clinton has basically done nothing of note. She's not been a leader in national security. She's not been a leader on economic issues. She's not been a leader on anything.
Is Hillary really the most qualified to hit the ground running if elected president? After all, she was First Lady for 8 years and now a senator from New York. Referring to her opponents, she said, quote, "There is one job we can't afford on-the-job training for. That is the job of our next president."
First Lady ever to be the first woman from the state of New York, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Hillary says we should elect her president because of her tremendous accomplishments in the United States Senate. Well, she's passed roughly 20 bills. Let me tell you what some of them were. To commemorate the 225th anniversary of the American Revolution, to express our appreciation to Alexander Hamilton, to name the Thurgood Marshall Courthouse in Lower Manhattan, to honor the men's and the women's lacrosse high school team from Syracuse High School, to express the sense of Congress that Harriet Tubman, who died over 100 years ago, should have received a federal pension. But is that the legislative gravitas and qualifications on which to elect a president of the United States? Is she kidding?
During her Senate campaign, Hillary promised to create 200,000 jobs, largely to benefit economically depressed upstate New York.
And if you help me get elected, I'll work day and night to put this plan in effect for the people and children of New York.
I'm Marshall Brown. I'm the owner-operator of GMB Farm. I grew up here with my father, but we sold out in 1985, and I started back up in 1987. I milked cows every day of my life for 20 years. Agriculture is New York State's largest industry. I don't know if Hillary was told that when she got off the plane or not. Dairy farming is the largest segment of that. 3 years ago, Hillary Clinton came to Oswego County. She said she had a plan for the dairy industry. Like all her plans, she never gives any specifics, but it's going to make everything all wonderful for us. 2 years after she gave her I Got a Plan speech, the price of milk dropped to the same level it was in 1979, and I'm losing my ass.
Senator Clinton's promise of 200,000 jobs for upstate New York was one of the most irresponsible statements she ever made. Because, A, it proved to me that she had no clue what was wrong with upstate New York.